Hi, friends. We are again back to another episode of Soaring Through Chaos. And as I said before, the purpose of this series is to support each other in facing the crisis that we are in, and any crisis, hopefully not too many in future. Um, Doctors, scientists always say that the best growth opportunities has been is when we are going through challenges and difficulties. Not always easy. And here's a person, Dr. Kapu Patel. I've known her for a long time. During graduate school, we became friends. And I found that she has gone through so many things, and each time she's evolved into something interesting. So, Kapu, you tell us about you. Tell us about your life and what made you get into photography after
Oh
a
my God.
glorious career in
Interesting.
pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I have a distinct right and left brain, I can think like a scientist and act like a creator. But really, I had a long career in pharma, and w- during Hurricane Sandy, um, a lot of personal crisis. I don't even want to use the word crisis, change in life that happened and made me realize I wanted to do something meaningful that was meaningful for myself. But in the process, I found that photographing people is actually more meaningful for them. And so that's where I have evolved to now. And really, my job as a photographer is to show you how you shine from the inside out. It's all about loving yourself, loving your relationship and your connections. And if you're in business, your passion and love about your business. That's what I want to show through photography.
You know what's interesting? I remember when we were in graduate school, that was quite a while ago, like 3 decades ago. I used to be the nerd and I always believed in image doesn't matter, all that matters is doing the real thing. And now I know within 5 years in my career, I knew the importance. And you evolved into a deeply spiritual being, really into like I would say a yogi who is committed to understanding life. Tell us a little bit about how these 3 decades have been and what's life like now.
Wow. So a large part of let's focus on the last decade, right? Because that's what
Yes.
here and now means. Really, if I look at marrying the principles of yoga, which is, the 8 limbs of yoga, which is about um, discovering yourself and being comfortable with yourself in the simplest of terms, right? Being accepting and loving yourself and bringing that into relationships. That's really what has been the game changer for me. So I actually started photographing yoga students and yoga teachers. And I
Oh,
said, the typical scientific mind of mine, if I be a yoga teacher, I can take better pictures. That was how it all started. And so I went through my teacher training, but I realized that it actually the study of yoga deeply affected me. I very rarely teach nowadays the asana practice, but it is the underlying way in which I approach most things in life. And they're not easy, right? Every time there is challenge, but if you take a step back and slow down, it kind of helps you go through things in a more calming way.
it's funny. Yeah, I used to be totally a mathematics physics geek when we met. And now I'm like the jingles marketing kind of a guy. Have you ever considered the tagline, photography from the inside out, which is what you said? Because it
Yeah.
makes so much sense. I remember you did a photo shoot for me in December because I was getting frustrated. One day I would put one dance photograph, another day I would put like jumping and swimming in the ocean. And now there's one image, not because that's who I am. It's not like I'm stuck, but people like an image. And then I can be freely what I want to be after that.
And I think a lot of times people think so. I want to make a clear distinction. Um, by image, I really do not necessarily mean the the media driven image of, you know, it has to be a certain makeup style and the face has to be a certain size, shade, whatever. The image really is about who you are, authentically you. And the idea of having, so let's talk about professional portraits, right? Like when you have a business or you are on LinkedIn, a professional portrait that talks about your trustworthiness and your expertise in your field, that you are a leader, that's important. Now, it has nothing to do with the physical look of it. It's about you, your portrait reflecting through your eyes who you are as an individual, right?
Yeah.
So image can also have a negative connotation, but here we're talking about an image not necessarily enforced by anybody else, but it's an image that you want to portray as an authentic you.
Yeah, and I mean, lest people get the impression we are talking about like movie stars and all that. Um, Kapus' background is actually a PhD in pharmaceuticals and worked in companies like J&J in hardcore sciences for the first, her in her past life, as we call it. And I was a engineering business guy, worked on hardcore electronic design. And even in these professions, people judge us, not in a harsh way, but they judge to see, can I trust this person? As Kalpana was saying. So, how did you, how should I put it? So, do you create, how do you go about figuring out what's the right posture or the image? Because when you did that to me, it felt like a deeply spiritual experience for me, because I told you I want to be seen as a leader in terms of leadership trainings with a compassionate heart. And I don't know even what that means. And you said, okay, this makes sense. How do you go about, what's your process like?
I think, so talking about, let's talk about tagline, because you had asked about tagline. I have a tagline that says, I make you forget there is a camera between us. And the whole idea about the process is really, that is my ultimate objective. Like when the authentic Shankar is in front of me and forgets that there is a camera between the two of us, then that deeply compassionate person, the person who is a leader in his field, the person who is most relaxed and himself comes out. It makes my job easy at that point in time. So yes, there is a bit of coaching that I give on what to wear, and we go into an in-depth interview with our clients about what is it that you're trying to communicate? Who are you trying to speak to, right? Because this is a still photograph that is speaking about yourself to somebody. So who are you trying to speak to, and what are you trying to tell? And then using that, we may give you some guidances on what to wear or how to stand or the lighting and all that. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is, who are you? Who are you? And once that comes out, it becomes easy.
Yeah, yeah. With the pandemic, so much has changed. We are now in the second wave, as they call it. First, you can't photograph people face to face, but there are so many people afraid. You were talking about anxiety and being relaxed. We are in a huge amygdala hijacking, in the sense that a huge number of us are worried about our elders, about family members, about jobs, about sustainability at a very personal family level. How are you able to make people relax? And how are you able to bring out the best in them, especially when many of us are at a vulnerable, most vulnerable point in life?
I think since the start of the pandemic, my philosophy in terms of interacting with others has always been, you have to meet them at their own comfort level, right? So there is no right or wrong here. Each one of us is experiencing this pandemic differently. And in the United States, you will see there are two extremes. There are those who are very conservative and they will not even step out of the house. And then there are those who are completely mask free and they don't think that this pandemic is real, right? But I'm not saying either one is right or wrong. what I'm saying is everyone has to navigate this at their own space and own way. And so if we give them space, it makes them feel more comfortable. So before the pandemic hit, we had, a few clients who were on our books already. They were scheduled to come. Now, some of them are slowly coming back and others are saying, hey, I need more time. I'm not ready to come in. And that's okay. I have to give them space and I have to respect that, because at the end of the day, they have to feel comfortable being in front of me. Now, we follow CDC guidelines and we, disinfect everything and I wear a mask and all those processes are in place. But those are processes. At our heart, what we feel comfortable, we have to do that, and that's where we are.
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, it's almost become a fashion statement now to have pictures with masks. Do you recommend that in say professional settings or in casual settings? Like in India, we
Um,
have Amitabh Bachchan, who was like the mask mascot of India, and then unfortunately he ended up in the hospital for a day. So he's thank God he's back, but like this mega star, you know. So what do you think about
I
the creating
I
that
think
new
mask.
image?
Um, Look, we all have to wear masks. We should wear masks. That's my personal opinion. Okay,
Yeah,
we should wear masks where we cannot social distance. We have to be careful about staying away from people who are at risk. Do I think people should be putting up their LinkedIn profile with a mask?
that's my
I don't
question.
think so. Because, you and I, if we tried talking with each other through masks, it just would not look the same. It just, we humans are designed to connect physically through smiles, through our eyes, through our expression. And it's like going to a masquerade ball. You don't know who the person is behind the mask. So I don't think that should be necessarily your LinkedIn headshot. But yes, I do agree. Um, and it's interesting, like even with Zoom calls, right? Like you can see I have a virtual background.
Yeah,
There's a lot of clutter that goes on. I do a lot of every networking now that we do from a business point of view is virtual. I mean, we don't have people meeting in person. When you don't meet in person, there's a way to keep you up front and center. So we just created this little virtual background. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You can see it all get cut off and
yes.
right. But you have to make the most of it, That's what it is.
Yeah, I tried the virtual background. My laptop has some setting. It gives a lot of like, suddenly I look enlightened. That doesn't work.
Which you are. So
No,
maybe
no,
it's the
no.
right way.
Sparks everywhere. No, no, no. I'm down to earth human with all the frailties of any human being. And what is it like in this phase of your career? You've been there, done that in terms of a so-called scientific professional career. What kind of satisfaction? For me, I just love to sing and dance, and it makes me happy. Sometimes I worry about how others perceive me, but that worry has become less and less because the singing and dancing part has taken over. And leadership is a nice way to kind of encompass that, saying compassionate leadership and so on. And yes, to me, it's an integrated life. In your case, you're doing something even more specific, yoga, photography, and all that. How does this feel to you after having been through your previous life?
I think, just the early part of our career, and particularly as new immigrants, it's always the go, 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 get mentality, right? So it's kind of nice to slow down. Having said that, even being an entrepreneur and running a retail business in these times is extremely challenging. And it could be an all-encompassing go, 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 get mentality if you let it be. But for example, being closed for a good 3 months during the pandemic has really given me time to focus on what is it that I really want to offer to my clients that is going to make a meaningful difference in their lives, personal life, professional lives, in their relationships. And it has given me the time to be very, very conscious about um, working with clients who elevate me and I elevate them. And it really has helped me kind of slow down and focus on the main why of why I'm being a photographer.
Wow, wow. And where do you see yourself going next? Would you be continuing photography, or is there a phase three of your career? What do you see happening? Because this pandemic, at least for me, has been a shift. And I was like, okay, it suddenly brought the possibility of mortality, not just for me personally, but everybody around me has just focused me. You know what I mean? Has it,
Yeah.
has it, and I know you've been through your family challenges too recently. In what way has that shifted your focus?
I think the one thing that the pandemic has taught us is we needed this reset button.
Sorry?
It's a reset. It's a reset button,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And to keep, so we actually lost my mother-in-law to the pandemic too,
Yes, yes.
and it has
Was she COVID positive at then?
towards the end, and
She
it
was.
was what it has made me realize is that we take so many things for granted, like having family members, loved ones around you at the time. All those things that you take for granted are no longer true, right? I am oh God, asking about what do you want to do? I want to travel. I want to travel around the world. Well, guess what? That's not happening right now either,
Not at the
right?
moment.
So I think the overall theme of what the pandemic has really taught us is to just enjoy this moment. Don't look at what happened in the past. Don't think about plan the future. Enjoy what you have right now. Make it meaningful. Make it count. Make it count.
Well, I must say, I never acknowledged this to you personally, but I'm doing it now. You were a big inspiration for me to leave my job and get into this phase of my career. I saw the couple before, you know, very busy in a fantastic career, but the outer resume was fantastic. The status and this and that of being a director at J&J. But and I see you now. The transition was almost like it was almost like day and night. I see the joy coming out of you, and I'm
It's
like,
because I've gotten older, Shankar.
no, 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 no. But I told Seema, I see Kapus so happy. It's almost like I'm jealous. I'm getting FOMO here. So, and it actually was, you were one of my inspirations to give it a shot. So I said, okay, 6 months I'll leave my electronic design business and biotechnology. I'll just take a break and see what happens. The 6 months became 1 year, 2 years, and now it's been 4 years. There's no going back. But
And
what's
you're
beautiful?
enjoying it.
Sorry. Oh, I
I see
love
you're
it.
enjoying it.
Yeah, I love it. I think I've grown 5 years younger, and not just look-wise. I mean, because I tell people don't have any deadlines anymore. I have only lifelines. I don't have any deadlines. I'm not feeling panicked. Oh my God. Like when I called you and said, okay, it's time for this thing, I always say, by the way, take your own time. Because I can space out my meetings. I don't do I don't have a quota of how many interviews I'll do, for example. And I don't have to monetize the interview. You see, the whole thinking has shifted to creating value, like you were saying earlier. And I want to thank you for that because it gives me that space of rest that after working 30 years in a high pressure career, to be able to do those little things for oneself and for society without any stringent deadline, almost the desi way. There are not too many deadlines in India. It actually is a relaxing way of living life.
And I think so. Look, I'll be the first one to acknowledge that I'm fortunate enough to be able to do this.
It's a privilege.
Yeah, it's a privilege, total privilege. And you said it, you hit it on the nail. But I also feel like as a society, this should be a privilege for everybody. It doesn't matter what job you are in, we should not have to be constantly under pressure, which in the US, it was still the case. Like even with COVID, people working from home, there are two types of companies. There are those who respect the private time of the family time, and then there are those who constantly put meetings on the calendar from 6 a.m. until 9 o'clock at night. Just because someone is working from home, now whenever they are awake in home becomes part of the job. So there is a very, very fine balance. And I think as a society, we need to focus on that.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Apart from the career, which is what we're doing, I had the luxury of being with my mother when she had her last major stroke for 4 months. And seeing her pass away, it was essentially like either I can hire help to keep her amused, or I can be that help. So I used to sing bhajans for her. I used to sing devotional songs for her 2 to 3 hours in a day. That was the best part of my third career, if you will, because I could just be with my mother, not worry about, oh my God, I have a deadline or a meeting. And I'm not suggesting that everybody can afford that. It is a privilege, but it is a privilege well worth taken, especially when I know that I will not exceed my budget. I will not exceed my needs. Living in India is a lot more economical on US dollars. So why not do something good, and why not use that time wisely? I don't charge for any of my services in India because I got my entire education for free. My entire education in India was completely given to me for free, and it's such a privilege to receive that. Even in Gujarat, where you grew up, kindergarten through full college for women in government schools and colleges is free. And not many of us appreciate that, how much the state is doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, I love the way you have really taken this and made, you're paying it forward. You are, and
That's it.
you're
And
an
it's not
inspiration
much.
for others to pay it forward.
It's not
So
much. Exactly. Exactly. It's a small thing. Being given the tools of the profession from middle school all the way through finishing college. And when we went to the US, it was again easy because research assistantships and all that. A lifetime of education given at no charge. I mean, what can be better than that? So, yes, we are privileged to have availed of those kinds of opportunities. And I'm not saying we have to be big time altruistic, it's just paying it forward. What else would you say to people, given that these are not easy times? How can we find that restful space within ourselves during these challenging times and not postpone our life?
yeah, and I think that is a very important point, right? Not postponing life, particularly like if you look at New Jersey, where I'm located, people are thinking the second wave is coming, right? So suddenly the whole new panic sets in. But like with anything else, this is here for the long term. So keep yourself safe, most important. Keep others safe, but within that, find a way to bring satisfaction and joy to your everyday. We cannot live in panic all the time. Now, granted, anxiety is a clinical disorder and some people will suffer from it, but if you know someone who is, be present for them, help them walk through this thing. And in terms of finding a way to continuing our life, as a small business owner, for example, I'm very conscious about how I can support my other small businesses in the area during this time. Whatever little I can do. If they're not open, buying a gift card for them. If they are open, using their services to the best of the ability while being safe. For families, again, if friends are isolated and they need to talk to you, but you cannot meet in person, stop texting and sending WhatsApp. Maybe do the Zoom call, right? So you and I could connect with each other. find ways to be with others so that they are not by themselves. And a lot of times people won't tell you that they're by themselves. So it's okay to pick up a phone and call them and say, hey, just checking in, how are you doing, and maybe they'll want to talk to you, maybe they won't, but at least you know that you have offered to be there for them.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, what you're saying, Kapu, is so important. Even from a science perspective, we are social beings. A friend of mine who just talked about isolation was saying the worst thing we can do for little children and young adults is to tell them to be disconnected from everyone. Can't do that. For
No,
a
cannot.
1 year old, 6 months at home can actually, they're going to miss out on the most essential social skills that they need. But even at the age of 60, for example, losing out on 1 year or 6 months away from children, grandchildren can be very unnerving, because that's what keeps them alive in some cases. You know what I mean? That's what kept my mother alive.
And so, if you are in a position where your parent, for example, is um, at high risk, go stand 6 feet, 12 feet away from them, open the door, they're inside, you're outside, say hello, smile at them. But it's okay to do that. I personally feel like it's okay to do that. And that's what we've been doing, with my mom too.
Well, it's such an amazing thing reconnecting with you, Kalpana, and you made my day. I haven't seen you in face to face in, I think, at least 3 or 4 years. Oh, you came last year. You visited us,
Yes,
December.
that's when I did your headshot.
That's true. That's true.
January.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but these 6 months are feeling like 6 years.
absolutely.
Talk
Yes.
about being relaxed, talk about being not anxious. These 6 months, and I was actually in multiple continents. I had gone to South Korea and to ended up in Mexico for 3 months instead of 3 weeks. It
Oh
felt
my
like
God,
three
Shankar, I
years.
don't know how you traveled through those times, but hats off to you.
It
And
wasn't.
it is really your strength that you stayed present. Otherwise, anybody else would have panicked. So you really kept yourself grounded through
I
that.
had I had made this great proclamation that I wouldn't come back to India until I had seen like 100 countries. I came back after two. So, but what's funny about it was that yeah, when I landed up in Mexico, not knowing Espanol and not knowing most people, I had to take a decision. Do I go back to? I could not go back to India because it was fully locked down. I could not go back to California easily because it was sheltered in place. And then it doesn't make sense to go to somebody else's home, not when there's a lockdown, when there's so much.
Hmm.
So what do I do? I get permission from the person who had given me their home to say, stay indefinitely, don't come back to California. Very simple. This is the somebody who is helping out with COVID-19 for the state of California. She is her husband actually works with the governor and the state of in the nation of Mexico. Please don't come back to California. Just stay, chill. I'm like, okay, doc, I will do that. But
That's what you did.
yeah, and I learned Espanol. I learned cooking. I never learned. I enjoyed cooking. Now I love cooking. Seema is super happy, my wife, that for the first time, this Shankar, after 30 years of me pleading, now he loves to cook and
I'll
masalas.
have
And
to visit India now.
yes, please, please, please. So yeah, there have been major changes, and 6 months feels like 6 years. So I'm not kidding when I say yes, I've gone through my trials and tribulations, but I learned to smile no matter what, and without faking it, without
Yes.
faking it. So, any other suggestions? Any other ideas before we say goodbye to our friends?
No, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to come here and talk, and lovely to connect again. And you light up the room. So you made my day. I'm going to start on a very positive note. Very excited about it. So thank you.
And please send me the links that we can share to the audience if anybody wants to get in touch with you directly. Do you have any special, if since we are talking about photography, do you have any specials due to the pandemic for people?
This year, I did launch a special pre-pandemic, which is now ongoing, which is called Beyond 50, and we want to celebrate 50 women over 50 and
The
tell
golden
their
years,
stories through portraiture.
50 plus.
50 plus,
Wow.
50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Who are these women? We have done amazingly over these years, and let's celebrate ourselves. So
And
that's
do you
what I
have a
do.
gallery that you can send a link to? Because it'll be wonderful to do that.
Yeah, and we have a few initiatives called the You Shine movements, which is talking about body positivity. So I'll send you all those things.
Excellent, excellent. I mean, absolutely necessary, especially at times like this. If we can even look in the mirror and say, wow, how many of us do that?
It's mirror meditation is very powerful.
Wow, yes, necessary, really.
Yeah.
So again, thank you, all of you out
Thank
there. Times are not easy. I don't want to pretend like it's all over, it's perfect. No, it is not. I have a close relative, age 93, showing symptoms of COVID, and 10 people in my immediate vicinity within 100 feet are actually COVID positive. So I don't want to pretend like there's no problem. And yet, life has to go on, and we have to be present to whatever comes our way. Not easy at all. If you have any questions for me, you know where to find me, and I will give the links and also to Kapu. So again, thanks a lot. And
Thank you,
it's
Shankar.
time to say goodbye, and we'll
And
be in
good night
touch.
to you.
Right.
Bye.